what is before you. See the here and now. That's the hardest thing. The only thing that counts. We're stepped out upon the world stage now. Now! With the fate of human dignity in our hands. Blood's been spilled to afford us this moment. Now! Now! Now!
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Jim Polito. Oh, we are back, and I am joined by the First Lady of Law, who appreciates just as much as I do Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, and that scene from the movie where he's sitting there with his cabinet,
yes,
telling them, we're going to get this done now.
He puts on an incredible performance, only second to, because I still love the John Adams series with Paul Giamatti. That was amazing. You played that clip last.
I played that clip before. And you end every one of your emails with the little line, facts are stubborn things. And he says that in the movie, but he doesn't say it in a way that would be overpowering.
Right.
So I needed I used his liberty speech when John Adams decided, all right, I'm not a loyalist anymore. I'm going with the Sons of Liberty. So,
right.
And here we are with a daughter of liberty, Allyson Cohen, host of Legalese. You can hear it every Saturday here on WTAG at 11 a.m. And in Western Mass, you can listen with the iHeartRadio app. And later in this hour, you're going to put a pie in my face, aren't you?
I'm going to put a major pie in your face for the Foundation for Autism Acceptance Worldwide. And I'm looking forward to it, Jim, because I've had pies in my face before. Many.
I've had pies in my face, but it's only because it's been spilled as it's going into my mouth. This one's actually going to go on my face right in.
Yeah.
And it is all for a good cause. It's like the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Exactly.
And it's to raise awareness. Now, I challenge people after I get this pie in the face, don't I?
You absolutely do. You can challenge up to 3 people.
I'm looking at one right now who's look at him. How do you get how do you get pie out of a beard? Look at Danny. No. How do you get pie out of a beard?
You need the thin comb.
Yeah, that's right, Danny. We'll give it. Maybe they'll give him.
You eat it out.
That's what baby Danny's for.
That's what Danny the Third is for.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll get to all that later in this hour. But I'm so glad we have this opportunity. We're sitting here, and as you were in the green room there, getting ready to come out, we find out that Jeff Sessions from Alabama has been chosen by Trump to be the Attorney General. Obviously, a very important post.
Right.
We don't know too much about Jeff Sessions. I mean, I do know he's very conservative. I believe he's socially conservative. But I don't have any idea, Allyson, what type of an attorney general he would be.
I don't have any idea either. I think time will tell. It obviously out of the cabinet that he is appointing in terms of what we're looking for. We want somebody who's integrous, somebody who has a good track record, somebody who's going to stand tough against crime. And at the same time, when I'm thinking about the overall appointing of positions, and I said this to you before, the Department of Labor, the Secretary of Labor, to me is going to be one of the most important positions that President Trump appoints. Yes.
You did. You're waiting for that one particularly in the cabinet. And we're talking with Allyson Cohen, folks, from Cohen Law Services, attorney and host of Legalese. Allyson, yesterday President Obama set a record. I talked about it earlier in the show. He put out 557, I believe, pages in the Federal Register.
Right.
Those are regulations.
Right.
So Congress passes a law, or there's an administration, and the Veterans Administration.
Right.
Or there's, as you said, the Department of Labor. And they take those laws and they interpret them and they put out regulations. He's broken his record. He's put out more than any other president in terms of pages of regulations. Labor Secretary, I guess, working with the president could say, yeah, we're going to scratch that.
Let's hope so, because if you look at the small business, first of all, you've got 55,000 pages now, I think, on the Federal Register.
Exactly.
It's a labyrinth of rules and regulations. So the recent regulation that that's going into effect December 1st for all employers is that anybody that has administrative professionals working with them has to essentially double their salary from $23,000 to $46,000 now, beginning on December 1st, or they have to start kicking right in with overtime. And that's been a huge huge topic of conversation for employment lawyers. How does a small business manage that going through? But that's just one of so many regulations. So I'm hoping, to me, doing obviously elder law, but the employment law as well, that we get somebody appointed who will claw back some of those regulations.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you work on both sides of the equation.
Right.
You represent both employees, as you represented me, and you represent employers. So you see it from both sides. But no matter how you felt about this politically, anybody, I mean, we're overregulated in small business. I sat with you once and we talked about, I think we had like a 10-minute conversation, and I was lost after 5. I said to you, what would it take for someone in Massachusetts to set up a small business? What do they have to do? And, for my grandpa, Polito, who came over in 1909, it was a wheelbarrow, a pick, and a shovel. Right. That was it.
And a handshake, right?
And a handshake. And he went out and did
business on your bond.
That's how he started it. And that company is still in existence today. But it's not like that anymore.
No. It's not. And so we are unfortunately restricting and restraining the small business owner, which is the backbone of this country. Wow. If we don't cut back on some of these regulations, to me, as a small business, we are killing the people that are the most important ones to the growth and the economy. So that position, out of all the cabinet positions, is the one that I am closely looking on. So.
Well, we're going to be looking forward to that in our future conversations with you. We're going to be looking forward to that on Legalese. I know Trump has said, and again, this is up for political debate, but he has said that he can inject billions of dollars into the economy without spending a dime. All he has to do is take out some of this regulation.
Right. I agree.
And free up money and time for businesses. I really was overwhelmed when you explained to me, well, okay, so this is Massachusetts. Now you have to do this. Right. And every week you have to do this. Then how could you do your business? Like if you were making...
the handbooks, Jim, are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so your wall of postings, where you have to have a full wall now. I go into some companies, I post for them. It's about an hour and a half to get everything up to make sure that we have every poster and that we've updated it. And so, yes, it's...
I know. Our kitchen in there, you've seen it.
Yeah,
I mean,
we need a second kitchen back there to manage all the posters for the labor
maybe
laws.
Not a bad thing. We'll have a bigger kitchen here in the palatial studios.
We'll work on that with the big guy.
No, they'll just put them up in the hallway. Let's go to something you told me that is rather shocking. You're saying, now, President Obama has, 60-something days left in office.
Right.
You're saying that right now, or in the very near future, he could use a little bit of a parliamentary maneuver.
Yes.
And get a Supreme Court justice like the one that he proposed seated before Donald Trump even raises his hand to take the oath.
That's exactly right. So Merrick Garland, who has been waiting for appointment, I think the count now is 247 days today. During the recess appointment in January, when the Congress goes into recess on January 3rd, President Obama could go in, put him in place, and he would be there as an emergency effort, which he's allowed to do under our Constitution until December of 2017. Now, whether he'll do that or not, Jim, I don't know, but he has the authority to do that on January 3rd.
Wow. Now, politically, he could do that. What are the ramifications? He never has to run for office again.
Right.
You can't blame the rest of the Democrats.
Right.
Now, but didn't the Supreme Court, Allyson, a little while ago, overturn one of his recess appointments and say, hey, you can't define when the Senate is in recess. It's up to the Senate to define it. But how could he do it this time? Because
of the fact that when they go on recess for those 2 weeks from January 3rd till they come back in for the inauguration, there will be a time period in which no business is being done. And that is the time that you can go ahead and sneak that temporary appointment in, so to speak. And I was going through this, which is interesting. So how many of these justices were appointed through recess appointments? Many over the years.
You mean through the history of the country?
Yes, through the history of the country. And and I'm not saying this at all for Justice Merrick Garland, but some of our most finest and well-respected justices, like Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr.
Really? Was
Earl
a recess?
Warren recess appointments.
Chief Justice Warren?
John Rutledge. William Brennan. These were all recess appointments.
These are all names I know, so they're giants because I don't follow the Supreme Court as closely as you would.
And think about how that would turn the balance. So I'm not saying that he would make that move, but at this point, does he have anything left? I mean, does he have anything to lose?
Well, see, I've been warning people that I think he's going to go out and make Bill Clinton's pardons and exit out of the White House look like it was, nothing. I think he is going to use that pen and phone like he used in his administration without any restraint. And I wouldn't put it past him. This is really something we have to watch for.
Right.
Because, again, what's the Democrat Party going to say to him? You're ruining it for us? No. He can say, I did this, not them. And then, Allison, there would be, obviously, Merrick Garland, we're going to assume, is a liberal justice.
Right.
Okay. So Garland gets on the Supreme Court. Now we have a Supreme Court where you could have a majority, not a tie.
Right.
And all they have to do is swing Kennedy on some decision, and a liberal decision stands. And this isn't like the regulations you were talking about earlier, where you can just say, you can erase that. They don't have an eraser at the Supreme Court, do they?
No, they have a principle called stare decisis, which means that laws that are made through the Supreme Court, cases that come out and establish Supreme Court law, has to stay in place unless there's some kind of overwhelming reason, a new case that comes up with new facts that would allow them to overturn prior law. But they are very hesitant to overturn prior law through this principle of stare decisis. So I've been hearing a lot of talk and concern from, amongst the lesbian, the gay community, in which they're fearful that, the gay marriage law is going to be overturned. But that cannot happen at this point. It doesn't matter what judge is appointed. And it's very important that people understand that concept of stare decisis. You cannot go back, for the most part, and overturn a history of laws that were formed in this country from a certain time period through the present. So,
I mean, there have been times like the Jim Crow thing. But after this, okay, stare decisis. It sounds like a disease.
Yes, it does. Well, all these Latin words do, right?
I've got a case of stare decisis, Danny. Could you call the doc in a box? All right, we are with attorney Allyson Cohen. We're going to get to what a trumped-up Supreme Court could be like, but we had to get the President Obama possibility out there so before we start this conversation. And later on, I'm going to take a pie in the face, and it's for a great cause, and I'm happily taking this pie in the face. So don't go anywhere. I'm Jim Polito, and this is your safe space. We're going over what a trumped-up court will be like. So we already set the table by saying that the president's pick from last year, who never got a hearing, never got a vote, the president could appoint that person in the recess January 3rd till the inauguration, because we switch over from one Senate to another, just like in the Congress, they switch over from one Congress to another. Okay. So absent that happening, how long does it take? So let's say Donald Trump, he gets in the 20th.
Right.
He, on the 21st, he says, here's my guy or gal.
Right.
How long does it take for that justice to be seated?
Okay, so the average now is 71 days for a justice to be seated, a little bit over 2 months. So we've got the shortest time that has happened in the last 60, 70 years was Justice Thurgood Marshall. First African-American, right, justice to the Supreme Court. He was seated within 7 days. So now I've got a little question for you. They obviously go through a process where the Senate questions them for a number of hours.
Right.
What justice do you think, I want to say judge, what judge do you think was questioned the longest? He may or may not have been confirmed, so I'm giving you a hint.
Oh, I know who it is.
Okay.
When you said he may or may not have been confirmed, Judge Bork, the late Judge Bork.
Right, Robert Bork. So
Robert Bork. And coined the expression, you got borked.
Yes.
Meaning you got, Yeah.
He was questioned for 30 hours, and he was not confirmed. So very interesting. But so we've got a court. Let's go through it quickly. We've got John Roberts, appointed by George W. in 2005.
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. We've got Ruth Bader Ginsburg, appointed in 1993. We've got Sonia Sotomayor, who appointed
She's an Obama appointee.
2009.
Yep.
Samuel Alito.
I'm going to say a Bush appointee.
Yes.
Bush 43, the kid.
George W. You got it. 2006.
Yeah.
Elena Kagan, the 112th Justice.
Oh yeah, she was. She came from Harvard. She was an Obama.
You got it. In 2010, also the 4th female justice on the court. You've got Stephen Breyer in 1994.
Oh, that had to be Bush. Yep, Stephen Breyer.
Clinton.
Oh, I'm sorry, Clinton. I mean, Breyer, because he's a Oh, he's a liberal. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Very liberal. It's okay.
Yep.
Here's one: Anthony Kennedy, 1988.
Oh, he was a Reagan in '88, but
Reagan
he kind of
he absolutely
he's the swing guy.
He is the swing guy. That's exactly right. So you've said this before. They may not go where you might have thought they were going to go, depending on who appointed them. Clarence Thomas, 1991.
Oh yeah. Bush the first.
Yes, you got it.
Bush 41.
And then Antonin Scalia, God rest his soul, 1986.
He was and what almost 30 years on the court.
1986 to 2016.
Yeah,
yes.
Reagan appointee.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a young man then. He was in his 50s.
Man.
Now, let me ask you that. Are they looking for people? If I'm making the decision, am I looking for somebody in their 50s so that I can have a lasting impression on the court?
Can I tell you that's a great question, because one of the things that they say when you look through the process now, it's a lot more complicated than it used to be in terms of the vetting process.
Yep.
But they do factor in things like race, religion, health.
Yep.
They look at obviously what the articles were that they might have published or the cases that they've written, what speeches they've given. But age is certainly a factor.
Yeah.
And so that's a very interesting point.
Because I want to leave my mark. I want someone there for a long, long time if I'm sure they're going to rule on the Supreme Court in a way that's consistent with my ideology.
Right.
So we've discussed that it's going to take 71 days.
Approximately, right.
So we want to start to get into the cases. I mean, even though there are cases right now going on.
Right, there are.
But the cases that are going to be the most important are always saved for the end of the session.
Right.
The biggest ones. You always save the finale for the finale. And if it works that the justice gets on in 71 days, what are we talking about? Late March, early April?
Late March, early April, which means that they only have March and April to hear the cases, because right now, court's in session, right? It opened up in October. I told you I'm the kid in the candy store.
Yes.
Court's back in session.
Yep.
Focusing in on all of the Supreme Court cases, we've got about 100 to 150 cases that are heard each year. Right now, we've had 17 cases heard. No decisions. 46 cases that have been set down for oral argument through December. We've got no calendar yet for really January or February. So we're waiting with a lot of these big cases that we have covered really on our weekly session. And so if they get set before February, it's likely, obviously, based on previous history, that a new justice would not be sitting in to hear them.
Wow.
And if they don't sit in to hear them, then they're not going to make a ruling on them.
And they could be ties.
Yes, they could be ties.
And when it's a tie, it goes back to the lower court.
Right.
And whatever stood in the lower court, that's the decision. All right. It's 8:30 now, so let's get the news break in, and then when we come back, we'll discuss those cases that will come in late in the session, how they will impact our lives, and then I take a pie in the face for autism. Oh yeah, it's worth it. Trust me. Don't go anywhere. I'm Jim Polito, and this is your safe space. All right, we don't have any failure to communicate here. Allyson Cohen from Cohen Law Services, host of Legalese every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to get a pie in the face later in the last segment, but right now, we're going to get right back to what we were talking about, the cases that will come in when a Donald Trump justice is sitting on the court, if everything works out. Now, I got a question from a listener in Enfield, Connecticut, actually.
Right.
And asked about Merrick Garland. This is Gregory. Gregory says, should maybe the Senate could not go into recess for those 2 weeks. You said they have to go into recess for that period.
That's how typically they follow their own schedule. Now, if there's some kind of hanky-panking going on, sometimes they can call it back in to session. But that's the 115th Congress. It's going to go through. It will end in December of 2017. And so they set their recess appointment times. And so it's a real possibility.
That he could appoint Merrick.
Yes.
Okay.
And
all
so
right,
he'll be in as a recess appointment. That's something we'll be looking towards coming January. But in the meantime, we said 71 days from the time he nominates with the advice and the consent of Senate. Longest time for questioning was Bork. He got borked 30 hours. He was never
30
appointed.
hours under the microscope.
Shortest time was 7 hours for Justice Thurgood Marshall, and he was in
First African-American
within
on
a
the
week.
court.
So,
Yep.
okay, so here's where we are. We've got a lot of cases that still have not been set for oral argument. So what I'm trying to project is which cases might be set after a new justice is appointed.
And there's no longer a tie
Right.
that these cases will have to be decided.
Right, and so that's only going to really be March and April,
Yep.
Jim, because after April they start hearing oral argument, and then they go in.
Then they go in and deliberate.
They
right?
deliberate, and then comes the Super Bowl. You and I know in
Yeah.
June we
In
wait
June,
for that.
they start
Good
dropping
stuff.
all those.
All right, so Gloucester County School Board versus GG. That was a transgender student, right, who identifies as a boy,
Right.
wants to use the boys' bathroom at his Virginia high school. Big controversy there. What will the court decide? I think if there is a obviously conservative judge appointed, I think that they're going to overrule part of what the Department of Education wanted to do, which was to go ahead and issue really a letter in which they said, it's our right to set things the way we want to set them. This is kind of a battle between a regulatory authority like the Department of Education
Right.
and the state itself. So with a court that might be more conservative, again, I think they're going to decrease the power of the regulatory authorities, like the Department of Labor,
Okay.
and try and cut down on some of these regulations. So it's the
There's
school.
a chance
Yes.
that could be overturned.
Right.
That could go back to, no, you can't use
Right.
whichever bathroom you
Right,
want.
exactly. And
Okay.
really,
Or the federal government can't tell you, or the state can't tell you
right.
which. Okay.
And in this case, the state wanted to have identify with, what the gender was at birth.
Right.
Until the Department of Education came in federally and said that's not how
You
we're going
have
to do
to
it.
allow that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Now we've got another case. This is actually an interesting case: Packingham versus North Carolina, and this has to do with a registered sex offender. I know we all hear that and we go, yuck.
Yeah.
But this has to do with whether or not you can have access after you've been a registered sex offender to websites like Facebook, like the New York Times, like YouTube. And so essentially he was convicted. He has to register. He went ahead. He got a traffic ticket. He posted something on his Facebook page that said exactly, God is good. I'm so glad I didn't get, have to go through this traffic ticket.
Yeah.
And they came in and they said you weren't supposed to access any kind of social media. And so they went ahead and he's now been...
He's fighting that under his
Yes.
First Amendment right,
Yes.
that I have a right to do that.
Exactly.
Interesting, because, in this state, it was even the whole fact of sex offenders having to register took forever with our state SJC. I can imagine here now
Right.
what will happen. Interesting.
So that one will be up. Like right now, it was, again, the North Carolina Supreme Court.
Wow.
They upheld their statute 4-2. They said, we don't care. We're protecting the public from sex offenders. But if you think about the Post, how do you look at that in terms of, it wasn't as it was some kind of...
Yeah, it wasn't as if he was trying to...
solicit somebody or make some kind of,
right.
despicable comment. It was, I'm so glad, thank you God, I didn't get a traffic ticket. So that's a big
Interesting.
First Amendment case. Then we've got this new area of law. It's not new, but they are now calling it crimmigration, which I actually love. Crimmigration.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Isn't it docugration?
Yes.
You can't say illegal alien.
No.
Okay. All right.
Docugration, but
illegal immigrant.
Crimmigration. So it's the intersection of immigration and criminal law. And we've got a case, Esquivel Quintana versus Lynch. It's all about a lawful permanent resident of the United States. He was charged with violating a California law that, again, makes it a crime to have sexual relations with somebody under the age of 18.
Okay.
He was 20 years old at the time. He had sex with his 16-year-old girlfriend. And so what ended up happening was they said it was an aggravated felony, and they want to remove him. Grounds for removal. So how will the court look at this area of law now called crimmigration?
Crimmigration,
yes,
yeah.
I think that's going to be a big one with the court.
That is. So that's
Yes.
the two. You got immigration law, you've got criminal law, and
Right.
you're putting them together.
Yes. What
Wow.
makes sense
It's
for
like peanut butter and chocolate.
Yes, or peanut butter and bananas. Yeah, one of my favorites. But absolutely. So we'll see where the court goes with that one. With a conservative justice, I think they're going to, again, promote that if you are indicted, if you are convicted of some form of a criminal offense, I think they're going to try to
They're gonna
move
say
you
you're
more rapidly
done.
out of this country.
You've lost your...
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Then this was one that you and I covered with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's before the court right now. If they have oral argument with a fifth justice. It will be interesting to see, or ninth justice, how this one plays out, because it's all about what is a free and appropriate education. So we've got, 1 in 68 kids now are diagnosed on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
We've got, in terms of the population, 1 in 5 living with a disability, but we've got this ever-growing increase of children that we need to service throughout our school systems. What does that look like? Is a free and appropriate education for children that are special needs something more than de minimis? Is it something that's a meaningful education? Because right now you've got a split in circuits. Many of the circuits say it's just a de minimis. Just give them the bare bones, the basics. Whereas other circuits say, no, it's got to be a meaningful education.
And this is for parents who have, and some people may be familiar with the acronym, an IEP,
right,
for their kids, an individual education plan. And it's because the child has some type of an issue.
Right.
And you go to the school and you have to fight it out to get the services for that kid in a public school. Okay, that one will have a major impact on people.
I think so, too. So we'll see if the new justice is appointed, confirmed, part of the group of 9. Maybe we will go ahead and get a ruling that says the school district needs to provide something a little bit more than de minimis, which I think would be a good one. Now, another big one. We discussed this, Jim. Trinity Lutheran Church of Columbia versus Poly. That was the battle over the playground.
Right, the battle over the playground, separation of church and state.
Yes, and they're saying the stakes in this one is much greater than the playground surfaces. So you've got the First Amendment's free exercise clause. Basically, what happened was they applied for a grant to Missouri's Department of Natural Resources, who said, sorry, we're not going to give it to you because of the fact that your preschool is connected to your church.
Yep.
And so we don't want to cross over and allow you to get this grant application, paid for.
Yep.
And so they now have appealed that to the Supreme Court. If that's heard with a conservative judge, my viewpoint is that they will rule for the church to say, look, this application for a safe space for children, when they did all the things right, they put their application in, they got it in on time, they should have clearly been given the grant to be able to put the recycled materials down so that children playing there in that playground do not.
It's to make for a soft ground. It's old recycled tires. But they're saying, wait a minute, you're providing that to a religious organization.
Right.
You can't do that.
Exactly. And you've got, of course, the First Amendment free exercise clause. You've got the equal protection clause. So this is a big one that the Supreme Court had already agreed to weigh in, because this talks about religious freedoms and that mix and that crossover. And again, church and state always separated out. They're very touchy about taking those kinds of cases, Jim.
Right.
So I think with a conservative judge, if he gets appointed, confirmed, and is sitting to hear this case, I think it will be a win in favor of the Trinity Church.
And the Trinity Church, and that will have ramifications elsewhere for these questions.
And we talked about this. School vouchers, fire and safety protection for private religious schools, social services. What about battered women's shelters and soup kitchens provided by faith-based organizations? Shouldn't they be able to receive public funds? If they go ahead and rule against the Trinity Church, those could all be in jeopardy.
Yeah, and that was a big initiative under George Bush 43, which was to allow faith-based organizations to receive money, not just nonprofits, secular nonprofits, but nonprofits that are faith-based, let them provide services too.
Right. So
interesting.
We've got one on every front. We did another one too. We actually covered this a while ago, Hernandez versus Maces. That was all about a cross-border shooting. I don't know if you remember that case. It was an interesting one. How does the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on unjustified deadly force apply to a cross-border shooting of an unarmed Mexican child?
Boy.
That's
huge.
Yes.
Well, listen, on that note, Allyson, that was great. A great explanation of what's at stake, what's up. You're going to be here with us throughout this as we get into this. We'll find out if Merrick Garland gets appointed in those 2 weeks when the Senate is not in session. That'll be an earthquake in the legal world if that happens. So we're going to have a little bit of an earthquake, actually a pie quake. I'm going to take a pie in the face, and if you're watching on Charter, Channel 193, you'll be able to see it. I'm doing it for a great cause, and I'm happy to take the pie in the face. Allyson will explain everything when we come back. I'm Jim Polito, and this is your safe space. From Cohen Law Services, but an advocate for people with autism, and she's going to explain why right now I'm going to take a pie in the face, and We'll describe it to you kind of the way they described the Hindenburg. Somebody's going to say, oh, the humanity. Go ahead, Allison.
Okay, so this is for the Foundation for Autism Acceptance Worldwide, which was the brainchild of Stacy Levine-Lavely and Nassim Audi from Autism Behavioral Services. It's like the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS, and I've taken a pie in my face, in fact, 6, by my little girl, Sophia, who was eating the whipped cream because all children with disabilities are different. You've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism or any disability, and so the idea is the sensory texture is why they went with the whipped cream pie in the face, and we're excited. So I know everybody's tuning in, and they're getting ready, and they're waiting with bated breath. So here we go. We're going to put the pie in Jim Polito's face, who's then going to call out on Monday 3 people who also have to take the whipped cream pie in the face. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready to take the pie. Can I eat it when I get... Oh, my God! What kind of a pie? It's not a pie. That's a turkey pan. That's a pan you would put a turkey in.
It's all going on him right now.
Go for it, Allison.
Yeah. Okay, look. I'm going to make it.
Oh, all right. Oh, my God.
All
I'm
right,
ready.
Folks. Here we go.
It's for a good cause. Do it.
Autism acceptance. Join us on the path.
Oh, my God. That's one small pie for Jim, one giant leap for autism awareness.
Totally great.
Oh, my God. My glasses. Can I take my glasses off?
Colossus of cloud.
Oh, my God.
Couldn't be any happier.
Oh, it's delicious.
It's whipped cream. Only the best, Jim.
Now, so this is, I have to now on Monday.
Yes. Paper
You
towel.
guys really freaked me out with that giant thing. They had, for those of you not watching on TV, they had a pan the size of one you would cook a turkey in. This is really good.
It was the best whipped cream I could find.
And your sister put it together, and you know, our friends from WSRS are here because they're loving it. They're getting a kick out of this. When it goes up your nose, Danny, when it goes up your nose, it's kind of good.
It's delicious.
The whipped cream is. I'm snorting it now. Wait a minute.
Here we go.
Oh, I'm getting.
Here's the glasses.
All right, so my glasses are. That's okay. Let's see, Allison. Not bad.
Hold on.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's all for a good cause. It is to raise awareness. Allison just talked about the Supreme Court and the fact that IEPs, individual education plans, everybody knows about them. 1 in 5 kids. And this is all to raise awareness so people will understand. It's going to be in front of the Supreme Court. It's going to be in front of you because of the percentages. The numbers are there. And we need to make sure that there's awareness, and then we need to make sure that the problem is taken care of. So, Allison, I'll let you add anything more to that. Other than I said, is I'm coming up with 3 people on Monday. And let me tell you, Hillary Clinton's one of them. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. She's down enough. Why don't you just give us a little bit more information?
Okay, so first of all, you can go to the Lady Law Facebook page. We have all of the information on there for the Foundation for Autism Acceptance Worldwide. There's also a Facebook page for the Foundation for Autism Acceptance Worldwide. I've taken the pie myself. It's for a great cause. We've had the Worcester superintendent do it. We've had many of the schools. We've got celebrities getting on board. It's delicious whipped cream. And so join us on the path, autism awareness to autism acceptance. Folks, we're all in this together. We're very excited about it, and we hope that you stick around and, of course, listen to the Colossus of Clout every day, Monday through Friday.
Allison, thanks. All right, folks. Well, listen, it's been a great week and a great show and a great pie in the face. Please take a moment to think about the men and women of this country who wear the uniform, wore the uniform, or those who made the ultimate sacrifice in that uniform. Be nice to our men and women in blue. They're getting rocks thrown at them. And we'll be back Monday morning from what could be the greatest state in the union if everybody would just take a pie in the face for autism.
I wish I was in Tijuana.